So we are now live. Yes, so I apologize to all the people last week when I screwed up. I didn't even realize I screwed up. You know, when it comes live on my screen, like it's doing right now.
Well, and I think that's the confusing part with the changes they made, because that happened to a client of mine. She was doing a interview with somebody, and I was waiting for it to start, and it kept never starting. And then I found out there when I messaged her team, they said, "No, we're live." I said, "I'm not seeing it," and then they figured it out. It went to her personal, and that was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, the interface. I mean, it's prettier. It's easier to understand. But it's just kind of like, okay, I'm going to hit the buttons and oops. And when you look at it on Facebook, you know, it says Lisa Dunn is live now. Well, I didn't notice that there was no in nerdy real estate resources.
Okay. That's why you're the technical side of this, because I would not even have gotten that far.
Ah, well, you know, I like to say, well, what's that button do? You know, I'm one of those people.
Yeah, you are quick. I mean, I would, if I had the responsibility, I would figure it out. I'm capable.
Oh, yeah, you would. You would.
But I don't need to, because you do it. So
that's why we make such a good team.
That's right. Well, happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday to you, and happy Monday to everybody hopping on here and joining us. Hey, Carla and Pam, nice to see you.
Even though I have my "Is it Friday yet" mug already.
Oh, heavens. Well, yeah, neither one of us are using our standard issue Monday morning coffee and compliance mugs. You know, I'm just, well, I need to pretend. But it's all good. It is all good. So since we kind of screwed up last week, we're going to, and a whole week has gone by. Imagine that. A week has gone by since last week. Boy, am I profound today. We've had a little over a week, about 10 days to figure out what the hell is going on. And we're going to talk about kind of what's going on. We'll recap some of the high points of the new COVID guidance that we got from CAR, and then a couple of things that Lori learned at the Friday meeting, and then talk about what we're seeing out there. So it's good to see everybody this morning. We're really happy that you joined us. So let's see. Lori, did you see any open houses this weekend?
Not very many. I mean, I honestly thought there was going to be an explosion of open houses because everybody was so eager. You know, the chatter on social media was, you know, we've just opened the floodgates, and I saw one estate sign. I live in an area where you have to have the green arrows, and so I saw one estate sale sign, which, you know, could have been code for open house. Who knows? Because I heard that one recently. And I saw one by appointment only open house green arrow sign, and I'm presuming that's because those were the ones in stock. Those were the ones closest to the front of the garage door when the person was setting them up. Who knows? Because or maybe they don't know that you don't need an appointment anymore. But locally, that was all I saw. And then I was down in San Diego County, and I saw I think 2 open house signs on the main road. Didn't follow them to figure out where they were located and how busy or what anyone was doing to conduct them. So all in all, almost nothing.
Yeah, I only saw one open house when I was driving from my home in Mission Viejo to my listing in Rancho Santa Margarita, and that was it. And they were
Was it on Antonio?
No, it was on Melinda.
And it wasn't the same one I saw.
No. And the funny thing is they didn't even have a sign out on the corner of the main intersection. It was just, oh, there's an open house up this way. Mm-hmm. And they were, you know, the basic green and white arrows with absolutely no markings on them other than open house, which is fine. I mean, legally, you can do that. But it just seemed like, wow, I don't know if somebody's really trying to drive traffic here or not. But yeah, I'm certainly not seeing them. And, you know, as I mentioned to you earlier, I had a conversation with a couple of agents this weekend. One of them had I can't say no idea, but it was, and this person's a prolific open house holder too. and they were like, hey, is it true we can do open houses? And I'm like, where's your broker? Who's your broker?
Who's your broker?
Ask your broker. You guys are going to hear this so much. You're going to be so sick of it. Who's your broker? Where's your broker? Ask your broker, right, Pam? Okay. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, there's people out there that don't know that, I guess there's office managers that don't know. I mean, how long does it take stuff to trickle down in some of the bigger companies, Lori?
Well, regardless of the size of the company, it's all a matter of who's paying attention. We can look at that at any level, whether you're in a big company or a small company, whether you're a member of an association or other trade group, how many people are honestly in the know? That's what it is. I mean, I remember as a newer agent in the early 2000s, this is when we were not relying on email. We were not relying on, I don't even remember if we could text message at the time. I can't.
Probably not if we weren't doing email.
Probably not. I mean, we all had an email, but we were barely using it because we would pick up the phone and we would fax everything. We wouldn't email anything.
Oh, and let me guess, you showed up for an office meeting.
We showed up. Okay, but here's the thing. Anytime any communication had to come out, and keep in mind, I was an agent then, I wasn't in management yet. Anytime any information had to be dispelled out to the agents, there were multiple methods of delivery. There was an announcement at the office meeting, but yeah, 30% of the agents would show up to the office meeting. There was an email, but probably less than 30% were even checking email. There was a voicemail blast that would go out.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah. And there was a flyer in your mailbox at the office if you came in the office. So I was one of those people that I would get the message in 4 or 5 different ways and be like, all right, already, I got it. Others, no clue. What new announcement? And there's 4 or 5 methods of delivery of this communication. They didn't get it. So it doesn't surprise me that
the mailbox that was like
oh,
this
yeah.
big and that full of flyers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stuff that was months old.
Man, having a
So,
flashback. Okay.
in my opinion, it really doesn't matter the size of the company. It's not a matter of, oh, well, big companies have a harder time getting the information out. It's all relative. It's who's paying attention. A percentage of the licensees are engaged in the business. And, at least half of them are just, they hold a license and they're not engaged. So it's hard to get that information out. It is kind of interesting to me when you mention that story that the guy knew there was a change, but he seemed to have no care in the world to figure out if there were any limitations or what that looked like. That's just sad. I don't even know what to say with that. And, here I am saying very few open houses. I'm not disappointed. I was worried last week going into the weekend that, it was just going to be madness out there. And I'm not disappointed because, we talked about it last week. Is there even really a need for the open houses?
And personally, I kind of like how we're doing things. I mean, you have better control of your buyers. They're not able to run around and just go look willy-nilly all over the place and, say, oh, golly gee, I'm writing an offer with the listing agent, or whatever. Not like that's going to happen now, but I mean, it very well could, but, I liked knowing where my buyers were. I liked having it on file that we were going to this house on that date, and for them to have to rely on me to get them into a property. And it was really kind of a nice change. It was better organization, I think. Sometimes it was hard getting, if you had to do a lot of properties, that could be a complete pain. But, I just liked it because it seemed more professional. Like, I think I mentioned, to that group on Friday, it's like, you don't see like your doctor or your lawyer, not like we're doctors or lawyers, but, holding an open house at their medical office. Hey, come on in. I'll take your blood pressure for free while we have the exam rooms open for these patients here. I mean, there's people here that made appointments to get in, and we're going to pay attention to those people. But now we've got all of these people walking in wanting their free sucker and their free blood pressure testing with no intention of ever coming back. I mean, nobody else really does this, I'd say, except for maybe a retail store.
Or car lots.
Car lots, yeah, but that's about it.
Which is why we get lumped in with the used car salesman.
Mm-hmm.
And if we, as you were talking about that, that's what I was picturing. And it's like, we were lumped in with them, it's just a step above them is, what I always heard. And even they had to figure out how to do appointment only. And I would presume they don't prefer to do the appointments only because they want people driving by, stopping, as do a lot of people in our industry. But, there's something to be said about the control that we can offer a seller by maintaining specific standards. And so, when we were talking about this last week, we have the guidelines presented to us, and as brokers, I'm addressing the brokers in our audience. As brokers, we can set our additional rules. We can come up with our own policies and procedures for our agents as a way to conduct our business. Now, if you're an agent working for a broker, then you have to abide by what they're expecting you to do. And if your broker is allowing you to basically only follow the few limitations that the state is providing, and you want to continue to maybe impose some other restrictions, then talk to your broker and see if that would be acceptable.
And I'm looking through our comments here. I think everybody's kind of saying that they haven't seen too many open houses this past week, and nobody's saying that they've held one. Our good friend Jan Dorsey, JD, I'll leave out any other letters, said it's also better for the seller to have qualified buyers with appointments than to have the public parade through their home. And that's, that is super important. And I know last week we had the comment made that, when somebody was asked to come back in 30 minutes because the house was full, the people weren't waiting and they weren't coming back. So, just having that, I thought that was great, just to say, oh, I'm sorry, we're booked right now. Can you come back in 30 minutes? And that's going to weed out the people that are just there to check out what color carpet or wood flooring or whatever the heck they have in the house. So let's see. And Carol, good morning, Carol. She says, I agree 100%. People's homes should not be on display for everyone to walk and just look. Keep it to serious buyers only and appointments. I think sellers will also appreciate that if they live in the home. And, think about it. Would you want just people running through your house? And, there's the changes that were made, which I know we have a comment in here saying, what changes actually did take place, the difference between last week. And Inez brought up something else that was a change that was brought up in the Friday meeting. We're going to have mask confusion, especially when things change again, because guess what? Things are going to change again. And, if it was your home, whether you've been vaccinated or not vaccinated, if you're vaccinated, you can still contract the virus. You're just not going to end up in the hospital. And you can still transmit it to people or whatever. Do you really want people walking through your home without the proper precautions? And I think it's going to be super important that if you do choose to hold an open house or even appointment onlys, that you do tell your other agents out there and their clients, you've got to wear a mask in this house, whether they're like, oh, well, the CDC says I'm vaccinated, so I don't need to wear a mask. I don't care. Wear a friggin' mask. You can do whatever it is you want to do on that open house, so you can tell people wear the mask. You're protecting your clients and you're protecting yourself. So
yeah, and just be sure, I would recommend put it in the MLS, put your expectations there so people know. Now, you put it in the private remarks, so agents will see that when it syndicates out to the other sites. You probably won't be able to see it there, although you might. I guess depends which spot you put it in and if it's allowed to go there. But if you put it in the MLS, then at least your colleagues will see that that's your expectation. And if your seller does want those additional requirements, then I would have that documented in your listing agreement so that you can say, see, my seller says, but don't make the decision for the seller. Have the conversation with the seller, pros and cons, talk about the pros and cons, and then come to an agreement, document it, and then put it in the MLS, just so people know, they know what to expect. And in terms of the masks, I agree, there's going to be mask confusion, because there are different rules for different things. And remember, CDC covers the country, but statewide, we have our own restrictions, and then there are local restrictions. It sounds like the state is going to follow the CDC guidelines after June 15th, but that doesn't necessarily mean that businesses have to follow it. I mean, we will absolutely still continue to see, when we go out to places, there will be signs that say mask required for entry, because it's up to the business owner. It's no longer going to be regulated by the government, but as a business owner, those places can make that decision. And in our case, the open house is a place of work, and the place of work can impose those stricter guidelines. So, for at least for the long haul, you better have a couple masks on you, just so you have what you need if you need it.
Yeah, keep that little goodie bag in your car: mask, hand sanitizer, and disinfecting wipes. I mean, you can't go wrong just having those handy.
Right.
We all should have them anyhow. But there were two things that came up in the Friday meeting that weren't discussed the week before. One is a little bit more confusing. The other one's just kind of common sense. Let's start with the common sense one, then let's go to the confusing one.
Okay, which one was the common sense one?
Common sense is no food.
Oh, the food. Okay. Yeah, so that question came up. Actually, I had somebody reach out to me and ask the question, and I said, well, I wouldn't be providing food at an open house, but I suppose if you wanted to, it would go under one of the different industry standards, which is preparation of food at gatherings. And I forget which categories it falls under, but the recommendation was individually packaged items. So on the Friday call, that question came up in the chat: can you have food at open houses? And so the answer was yes, but outside. Because if you are offering it inside, people are going to want to eat it, which means they have to remove their mask. Now, number one, you have a short time period to be in that house anyway, so there's no time to stop and graze. But number two, then they've removed the mask. And so that's the main reason why you can't have food inside. So if you want to do, whatever kind of food you want, have it outside. Maybe give it to them on their way out and have it pre-packaged so you don't have people, touching everything.
And who?
Yeah, pretty common sense, but a good question.
Yeah, and think about it. Would you really want to eat like a cookie that's been left out on a counter, unwrapped, with people walking by, just, hey, look, there's a cookie? And it's just really kind of disgusting when you think about it, So that was number one. And what was number two?
The other one is the more complicated one. So within the guidance, it talks about the rules for gatherings, and the rules for gatherings currently are there's a limit of 2 hours that people can gather. So that caused a lot of questions on Friday, and there was a lot of confusion. That wasn't initially covered by the attorney doing the presentation. So it came up in the chat, and he responded to it really quickly. And so there were more questions. So the gathering limitation is 2 hours maximum. So people were trying to understand, does that mean we can only do open houses that are 2 hours, or can they be scheduled for 4 hours? And so the goal really is to have any visitors not linger more than 2 hours, which we know that's not going to happen because we're giving them appointments, or we were giving them appointments. Now we don't have to. But you don't want your visitors lingering for 2 hours. Okay. So then the question is, well, what about the people hosting the open house? Can they be there more than 2 hours? And when you kind of look at the essence of the rule, it's to not have groups of people together for 2 hours or more. But to be on the safe side, what they're saying is, yes, an agent can have a 4-hour open house, and they should just go outside and take a break, get some fresh air, come back in. So now you're not enclosed in that space for more than 2 hours. So some people in the chat suggested having multiple agents host the open house so you can rotate, maybe having an agent host the first 2 hours and a different agent host the second 2 hours. That's an option. It's not required. The only person that's really going to notice is the nosy neighbor that you, the agent, have been there for 4 hours. So just go outside a few times, and they're not expecting the CDC police or the Department of Public Health police to come in and say, hey, Lisa Dunn, you've been here for 2 hours and 5 minutes. You know, there's no expectation that that's going to be happening.
And I mean, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to have a little fun with this because it's like, who the heck came up with the friggin' 2 hours? If somebody's going to cough in your face, it can take place in 30 seconds.
Yeah, but remember when things started opening up months ago and gatherings were allowed, they were trying to limit people from having all day parties and just hanging out all weekend together. Instead, it was a 2 hour limit. And because the open house allowance is basically under gatherings, that's the rule. And that's why there was the question of, hey, wait a minute, what about this? No one talked about this the week before, that there might be a time limit. And so, according to CAR, they recognize that, yes, that's part of the gathering restriction, but they were essentially saying, don't let the visitors hang out for more than 2 hours. And you as the agent, just to make sure, you're not breathing in all this junk for 2 hours, go outside.
Well, and I think, a couple of thoughts on the logistics of holding an open house. And I may have said this last week. I don't remember. I can't remember that far back. I'm getting old. Think about what needs to be done now at an open house. When you think about all of the different things that one person, one agent would be responsible to do, you've got, possibly crowd control. If anybody's showing up, I'd love to know, is anybody even going to open houses, the few that are being held? But let's say you hold an open house, you've got, 10 people out in front, you got to get them all signed in, you got to get them all sanitized, you got to get their mask on and all of that. Then they go in the house, and then you have to be sure they're 6 feet apart, because we can have multiple groups, no more than 50 people, which Lord knows 50 people in a house is a joke. So, you've got to be sure that you've got, the right amount of people and they're moving along, because that's
but let's stop right there, because I want people to understand, it doesn't mean you can have 50 people in the house. It doesn't. Even though the gathering guidance is up to 50 people for yellow tier, it's still also only 25% of the occupancy. And in a home, how the hell do we figure that out? Because is it, is it the, two in a bedroom plus one? Nobody knows. And the reality is you got to keep people distant. So when people keep saying, oh, I can have 50 people in the house, we've never had 50 people in the house unless we're throwing a party. And so, I don't like to use that number. I just like to make sure people understand. People need to be distanced. Households need to be distant 6 feet apart from each other. They shouldn't be passing each other in the hallway easily. Have that plan. We kind of talked about that last week, of have the plan ahead of time of how many groups you would allow in at a time. And keep in mind, you very well could have a group of 10 people. That could be one family group, one familial group, and it's a bunch of different people just showing up together. And doesn't mean they're all going to buy the house, but we know people bring others along with them.
We have had the groups of 10 to 12 people come in at one time. And and I'm really happy you clarified that. Again, it's somebody out there is going to say, I can do this. Well, yeah, you could, but why would you do something like that? You want to just keep the people spaced. But
if you have a 2-bedroom home, 50 people in there is going to be pretty dang crowded.
Yeah, even 2 groups is going to be pretty crowded, like in a smaller condo, maybe like a 3,000 square foot house, you might be able to get away with, maybe 5 groups or something. You're still going to have people running into each other on the staircase and stuff like that. But from the logistics standpoint, you're going to need somebody in the house making sure that people are doing what they're doing, moving along, not standing in a room and holding a long conversation for like, 2 hours, but people are going to need to do that. And then you have the reason why you're doing the open house, for the agent to be able to talk about the property, why it's wonderful, do the follow-up, see if you can, procure a new client, because we know that's why a lot of people open houses. I personally do, and try to sell the property. So right there, that's 3 people, so this is a good time to either say, hey, we got a new agent at the office that could learn some good skills by watching and helping, not being thrown to the wolves to hold an open house by themselves. Have them help you out, or your favorite, lender or title rep. Everybody loves having a lender in an open house, because maybe somebody might need to be pre-approved. Maybe not, I don't know. But you know what? You can rotate. And nobody really needs to be inside that house for full 2 hours. Some of the best open houses not open houses, but the best appointment only, really super busy new listings. An agent opened the garage door, sat up a table, and she just sat there and basically made sure everybody was okay before they went into the house. And you could switch stations and keep that rotation, so nobody's in the house for more than a certain period of time. People could hand out that cookie on the way out the door that's all wrapped and nobody's breathing on it. You can do it, but don't think that you're going to be able to really do this alone. I wouldn't. It's just good to be able to rekindle relationships with affiliates or other agents in your office and get some people together, because you're going to need the help, and you're going to run a much more efficient open house too.
Yeah. Something you were talking about made me think about this other thought. So I was down in San Diego yesterday, Saturday rather, at Point Loma at the lighthouse, and they had said, yes, the lighthouse is open, no more than 5 groups of people at a time. It's on the honor system. And I thought, okay. So we get there, and of course it's tiny. So, it's straight up, but it's tiny. But people were being very careful. People were monitoring themselves. And so it reminded me that at open houses, the people showing up to the open houses are not going to be excited to see 40 other people in the house. The optics of how you conduct that house is something we haven't talked about in a while. We've talked about optics on some other things, but we haven't talked about that in the last 2 weeks. The attendees are going to be watching to see how you, as the agent holding it open, conducts it. And if you run it like a circus, they're going to notice. And if it's in your farm, that's not going to be a good thing. And the other thing is, there's also cameras. Clients have cameras. We have to remember that. I know we talked about that previously. Your sellers are going to be watching how you're conducting the open house too. So just think about that.
Yeah. And I think we need to be cognizant of that regarding any showings. You have to realize that, you don't even notice half the time that there's a Ring doorbell out there, or maybe they have a Ring doorbell that's in a different location that you don't know about. And, everything you say will be picked up. Everything you do will be picked up. And a lot of people, I believe we heard in risk management that there was an increase in grievances from sellers that were saying that they were seeing that nobody was doing proper COVID protocol during their showings.
Yeah. And I had heard that a few months ago, that from an attorney who was doing a presentation, and said that the clients were not hesitating to file claims that that their agent was putting them at risk by not following the guidance.
Yeah. So, we may be seeing those little commercials on TV, did you contract COVID while your house was on the market? Call Dewey Cheatham and Howe for, your free consultation. We'll get you millions.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see what we got going in the comments here. Let's see. Ms. Dorsey says if you post your open house in the MLS, you can put the rules in the MLS open house description so that they will get included in the syndication post.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. And say what? No cookies at open houses?
I didn't say no
maybe
cookies.
wrapped ones.
Yeah, you can have cookies, just not inside, and you should pre-wrap them.
Yes. And let's see, Inez says, why did they think bringing back the open house was a good idea, knowing that the market is intense? We will now have to find and maybe pay someone to help us manage the crowd control. Well, put your title rep to work, put your lender to work, put your, whoever your favorite affiliates, because, I know somebody had said, oh, geez, now all the affiliates are going to come to the open houses and we're going to get stuck in there having to talk to them, which, nothing bad to affiliates, but there have been a few that have abused that privilege of, you're cornered, you can't leave, so I'm going to come in and talk to you. And you're like, get out of here. And you don't want to be rude, but, and I'm sure some will do it. But hey, if you have some that you actually enjoy their company, which I know I enjoy the company of many of my affiliate partners, I would love to have them come and help. So you know what? They can manage the crowd, let them be kind of the bad guy. And you can just stand there and hand out your packaged cookies at the end and say, look at me, aren't I wonderful?
Well, I wouldn't say let them be the bad guy. That's not very nice. That's not very friendly for our partners. But I would say ask
Rotate your
them.
stations.
I know. Ask them, because they may not be ready to do that either though. So, don't expect it. Don't get disappointed if they're not. We don't know everybody's personal situations. They may have someone that they have to go home to and they rather not be exposed, even when things are opened up. I know a lot of people, including myself to a certain extent, where it's like, yay, in 3 weeks, everything's going to open up. That doesn't mean I'm like just going to go wild. I mean, I'm still going to have my precautions because number one, I still want to stay healthy, even though I'm vaccinated. I still want to be able to go visit my family and make sure that my dad stays healthy because he's not going anywhere. I don't want to be bringing anything over to his home. And, on a certain extent, I've kind of enjoyed this bubble that I've been in. So I'm not going to go crazy. Now, that doesn't mean I don't go out for dinner every Friday night and I'm out all day Saturday and I do errands during the week. I do it, but I'm careful. And so a lot of people are still going to retain some of that. Just like we'd like to retain some of those limitations to reduce our sellers' exposure to people who aren't really buyers. I want to retain that option to make the choices that work for me. So that's
and we've discussed that before. Everybody has their comfort limit, and back when I first brought up the COVID scale, I was a hard 7.5. And I'm still a little, I think I'm going to go to the car wash for the first time in over a year today.
I was going to go to the car wash today too.
Oh my gosh, maybe I'll see you there. Because I was totally freaked out. And I'm still a little freaked out about having somebody inside my car for an extended period of time when they're supposed to be wiping everything down. I'm just kind of like heebie-jeebied out about it. And,
just know they may or may not wear a mask while they're in your car.
I'm going to sit there and watch them. And plus I have a can of Lysol that I figure when they're done, I'll just kind of, spray everything down. But I'm still pretty wigged out about it, and yesterday I had to do a final walkthrough and the agents, came up and we were chatting for a little bit and I had a mask on. I was outside. I just put it on and, just had it on. And he's like, oh, do we need to wear a mask in here? And I'm like, well, I'm fully vaccinated, but yeah, it's, for my tenant's sake, I would like everybody to wear a mask. Oh, okay. So, I'm that way. And honestly, if I'm holding an open house and I'm the one sitting in there for 2 hours, I want everybody to wear a mask, whether my seller says it or not, because I want to protect myself. Because I like you, Lori, I can't afford to be sick. I've got, people I have to take care of. And I don't want them getting sick. I can't be sick. it's just not worth it. If I have to make somebody a little uncomfortable with saying, please wear a mask, at this point in time, everybody should be freaking used to it. And it's my prerogative. If I've got to be face to face with you in an enclosed place, and I don't know you, granted, we're in restaurants and we always joke about oh, gotta wear your mask while you're walking through. Oh, I'm going to sit at the table and take it off because now I'm magically not contagious. I personally think that that's kind of silly. And I didn't really want to go into restaurants until I was vaccinated, just because of that reason. But I don't know. It's still somebody's house. And, I think my safety is just as important as my sellers. And I think we should kind of all look at it that way. Let's see. What do we have in here? Okay. Oh, we got lots of comments. I got a lot of reading I got to do here. One of my agents booked an appointment to show a property yesterday. He showed up to the house with his client in separate cars. There was a line around the corner for the open house. My agent was shocked because he wasn't told about the open house being held at the same time as his appointment. They chose to pass on that house. Wow. Yeah, that really kind of sucks. Especially, how does that make you look as an agent?
Yeah, and that's just disappointing because you're not honoring the appointment that was made, and I think we're gonna experience that for a few more weeks.
Yeah. And then Pam obviously is very adamant about this because she posted it twice. I'm going to assume that was a mistake. What about measles, colds, regular flu, chicken pox, whooping cough? Well, number one, whooping cough, can't you be vaccinated for that? And measles, you should be. And, again, we've talked about this before. The good thing about us having to wear masks for a year is maybe we'll continue to wear a mask when we need to. And maybe we shouldn't be out when we're sick. The flu cases are down to like nothing. And, I don't know, anybody here caught a cold? Anybody gotten the flu? We learned some really good health tricks in the past year. And, oh, my groceries must be here. The doorbell rang.
I heard that one.
Another good perk.
I know. I've got a shopping cart built for Target for my pickup when I'm ready to click. It's so great because I don't have to go and spend a ton of money. I mean, I love just browsing I love grocery shopping. Just it's fun to just browse, but it's nice to just be able to, throughout a day or two, just add things to the cart casually as I remember them. And I remembered I needed ice cream just before I got on here, so added that to my cart. We'll hit send, and when after I leave the car wash, I'll go pick up my order.
And I'm hoping that my son's going to answer the door in a second because I think there's something in that order that you have to have ID for. Oh my gosh. Well, they rang the doorbell twice, so I think you got it. But you know what, Lori, take it away for a second. Tell everybody what else was covered in the Friday meeting because I need to be sure that it's taken care of. Hang on.
Okay. Well, hey everybody. So, we are anticipating the full reopening around June 15th, which means some of what we're discussing today as leading up to today very well could all go out the window as of that date. But at least as of now, today is May 24th. You do still have to wear the masks. A question came up regarding the offices reopening. So if you have an office, how will these guidelines change the office? And specifically, how will Cal OSHA play a part into the office reopening? And so Cal OSHA doesn't actually create the writings, they're just the enforcement wing. So depending on the California Department of Public Health, whatever guidance they issue, you still need to follow that. So if you are currently in the process of reopening your office, be sure to go to the Department of Public Health website and pull the office guidance, as well as the real estate transaction guidance, because there is information in there about the offices as well. And it's just really unclear what will happen as of June 15th in terms of any guidance. It's sounding like all limitations will be lifted, but we shouldn't assume that. We can maybe plan for that, but we shouldn't assume that. There still could be some additional guidance that's imposed. And let's see. There was, I think we covered a lot of that. Oh, well, I literally wrote duh on my paper. A question was asked regarding the open house policy. Does that apply to broker opens? Duh, yes.
I'm sorry.
I know. I mean, that one really, the fact that I wrote duh on my page and circled it.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, and it's funny because on occasion, in these what are they called? Industry leader meetings, there's some really ridiculous things that come up.
Mm-hmm. They're new leaders.
That must be the case.
They're new. They're new. I mentioned, in the early days of my career where I would receive notification 4 or 5 different methods. There's actually a term for that, a psychology term. So I'm a once, other people are many. I need the message once, other people need it many times. And so I try to chalk it up to, okay, they haven't been here in the group before. And so maybe they didn't know. Okay, so here's a very important update though that I did not hear about until Friday. So it was not on my radar last week. You remember the home hardening disclosure that came out, okay? And then part 2 was coming out. The law was going to be effective July 1st. Well, they have released the form. It's the FHDS, Fire Hardening Disclosure Statement, or maybe Defensible Space. I don't remember. I didn't write the title down other than FHDS. But that form was released this week or last week, and it covers the part 2 of that. The reason is, as of July 1, if you have a listing or if you're on the buyer side that this information applies to, that document needs to be in your file. So they released it early. They released the document early. So if you have a listing in a high or a very high fire zone, that sounded funny, high or very high fire zone, then you should be adding this disclosure to your transaction if you're not going to close by June 30th. So I have not had the chance to look at the document, but if you have a listing coming up that would close after July 1st, you want to make sure that you have the proper documentation if it's required. And I need to look at it because there's some other details related to that regarding some inspections, and I don't want to give away any information because I was not clear on it. So just a heads up, if you're in an area and you have a listing where the property's in a high or very high fire zone, you want to get the updated form. And I'll report more on it next week.
Yeah, that's something that, for me, it's been kind of like going in one ear and out the other. It's just not sticking. And I don't know why it's not sticking with me, but I've really got to study up on that a lot more. And let's see, Janet Dorsey says FHDS, Fire Hardening Defensible Space Advisory and Disclosure, replaces the HHDA, very convoluted and complicated disclosure. Well, maybe that's why it's not sticking with me.
Yeah, because it was a 2-parter, and it was like we were hearing about part 2 before it applied, and then now it's going to apply, and yeah, we need to study up on it.
Yeah, we'll have a special little thing. Maybe we'll have Janet on as a guest.
That would be lovely.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it? She's one of our favorite people. So that would be great. We do have a lot of people commenting about the people being rude with using showing time, which is they're blocking all of the spots out so other people can't get in, which the listing agent would have to be seeing this. I don't. honestly, I don't know. I mean, how can that be?
Yeah, so I was in a meeting, I don't remember which meeting it was last week, but I was in a meeting where that came up, and here's a possibility. Some agents don't want to use the product anymore, and so they might very well be blocking the times so that it's not used.
Hmm.
So that's one possibility. It may not be people taking up extra time, because you're right, the listing agent would see, I mean, presumably they're seeing who's scheduling, and they would see multiple appointments scheduled, at least for the same agent, because I would imagine it tracks the agent.
Oh, it does. You get a little, well, if you have it set up to get notified, you would be getting notified every time an agent would make an appointment. And if the same agent blocked out 4 hours of appointments, I think I'd be calling that agent saying, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah. So consider that it may be the listing agent may not want to be using the product and is blocking it so that there's no appointments available. Although I would like to think that they put in the notes, here's the way to schedule an appointment. So who knows? Maybe they don't. I don't know. Maybe they just want you to show up and not use the appointment scheduler. So
Yeah.
there could be a variety of reasons. I think because we're going through that transition too. There could be a number of reasons why something like that might be happening, possibly purposely.
Yeah, maybe there is. And I will say from um, being on the CRMLS focus group for new products, we are aggressively looking at new alternatives, other scheduling apps out there. The last one that we did last week, the last one we saw, actually, I thought was super impressive. And just so people know, the first question that focus group members are asking is, what are your plans? You're not selling this, are you? Because if you're going to sell it, we don't want it. I mean, and the poor guy, he probably got that from 5 different people in the focus group. You know, he's like, we're a family run company. We have no intentions of selling. It's 3 generations. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, who knows what other people said when they were approached to sell. But, you know, we're really looking at new products, trying to get replacements. And you know, they talked about maybe having more than one. So, you know, it would be product of choice, which my question was, is whose choice is it? Is it the association's choice? Is it a broker's choice? Is it the agent's choice? It may boil down to an association, because we got to get people kind of on the same page to use it. You know, I was a late adopter of Showing Time. I actually thought for the pandemic and for a hot market, you know, was it a little primitive and a little hard to use in certain aspects for blocking time? Absolutely. Did it make my life a hell of a lot easier? Absolutely. I'm really hoping that we get another alternative out there. You know, like many other people, I feel I don't like to, you know, pad the pockets of competition. Um, and I think that, you know, the stuff that we saw was superior. The last one, I'm hoping that they run with that, because it was far superior, a lot easier to use, and it looked pretty. And hopefully, though, you know, we'll be doing the same thing on, you know, I'm going to say the G word, on the glide front. You know, I mean, I'm hoping that people are, you know, I mean, if you were in kind of dabbling in this business, now is the time to go out there and create something that just really would knock the socks off of people, because it's been done. Somebody's done it. How do you improve on it? How do you build that better mousetrap? And hopefully people are doing that out there right now. I know on the scheduling they are. Let's just see how we do on other things. But I do enjoy being on that group, so we can actually see. And it's agents that are checking it out, that are looking at it, people that actually work, to see if it's going to be something that's user friendly. The first one we looked at wasn't, you know, I didn't really like it too terribly much. The second one I thought was killer. And I'm hoping that we can see something progress shortly in that regard.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got going on here. Turn off showing time. You can do that, you know, and that's true. You know, there's different ways that you can do that. Let's see.
Yeah, that was one of the comments of maybe the listing agent doesn't know how to turn it off.
Yeah. And you know, it's sometimes they just block it out anyhow because they just, their clients don't want showings that day. And there's supposed to be a reason, given for agent blocked out ones, listing agent blocked out ones. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's it's confusing out there, and I don't think it's going to get any less confusing.
No, I
And
mean, this is when you really need to be on your A game and paying attention to what's going on, because, you know, we heard the announcement of the open house on a Wednesday. By Friday, we had guidance, and new forms. And then a week later, some of that was clarified. And in a couple of weeks, it may or may not all be for nothing. So you have to be on your A game to absorb the information, to pay attention that new information is coming out, and then be flexible that it will change. And in terms of technology usage, yeah, I mean, you've got to be able to adapt to new tools quickly, because if others are using them, you may have no choice but to use them, because it's on the other side of the transaction, or part of the showing that you want to bring your buyer to. So it's really important now more than ever to really step up the professionalism. And we always advocate for that, but I think now more than ever, we have all become so much better in the last year as a result.
yeah, I really, wholeheartedly agree. And also, too, we need to realize we should all have a plan at this point for the next 30 days, because we have, we're kind of easing into it, it appears, because really our business isn't going to change too much, except for maybe we're not going to have the forms. Maybe we will have the forms. We don't know. But, I was looking at my phone, and an ad pops up, the Dodgers are going to be at full capacity, June 15th. You can buy tickets now for games, full capacity games, or you don't have to be in the vaccinated section or whatever. We're going to be seeing a lot of changes, and we need to be ready. Everybody out there needs to be ready with, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Public perception, figuring out what you're going to do to make yourself comfortable, figuring out what you're going to say to your clients to be sure that they're comfortable. It's going to be, like it's going to be the new normal, because we're just kind of getting used to the new normal, which I really don't want to come out of my cocoon too much for being the bizarre, crazy extrovert I play on TV. Really, I'm kind of this happy little introvert that's just like, I don't want to leave. I like my home office. And, having to get dressed, put on a dress and go out and play. I'm a normal realtor again. I'm going to miss my tennies and my sweatshirt and my yoga pants. Ooh.
Yes.
Okay, well,
I like that.
more in the loss of that. Did they bring up anything else besides open houses at the Friday meeting?
Yeah, nothing else that I wrote down, because it was stuff we've already talked about.
Well,
there was a big conversation on the PEDS, addresses versus no addresses, and a space for the agent's signature versus the way that it's the PED all is laid out now. I think the room was kind of 50-50 on that. Address versus no address, and does it need a space for the agent's name or not? And then again, who knows in a couple weeks if we'll even be using the forms. So if you want an address on it, you can write an address on it. If you want to put the agent's info on there, you can add the agent's info in there. There's a lot that you can add with like DocuSign, just add text boxes and add it in. So, I think it depends on which side of the transaction you're on. If you're on the buyer side, you want it simple, no address, then you get to use one over and over and over. If you're on the listing side, well, hey, you want to be able to better keep track of the PED that you receive. I mean, if you have 10 listings, it's a problem. If you have one listing, okay, that PED is for that listing. Kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If you have 2 or 3, maybe, you know, it's confusing, but if it's being emailed to you, you should be able to figure it out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know for a showing I have today, I use the Peed All, and I did it in DocuSign, so it has, you know, both the clients that are going to be seeing the house, and I have my initials on there and send it, you know, for the listing agent to sign it in DocuSign and get the final copy. So at least that way I've got a record of everybody on that transaction. You know, I know that the listing agent got it. It shows that, you know, my signature's on there. So at least it can all be seen. But well,
and just understand, it's not required to be acknowledged by the listing side.
But I'd like them to.
You may like them too, but it's not required. I don't want people to think that, oh, now I have to wait on that, because the whole idea is anyone who's entering has affirmed they're not sick.
Yeah. Well, how I have it set up is myself and the 2 clients, we all do our thing, and then it goes to the listing agent, and then if they want it, they can sign it. Otherwise, they've received a copy. So it just kind of makes it easier for.
Yeah, that's all that's required. But in terms of expecting it back,
yeah,
that's not part of the requirement. So
I expect to hear that my offer's been looked at, and I don't get
you
that.
ask
So
too
what would I
much.
expect on the feed?
I think you ask too much sometimes. What? You want people to do the right thing? Come on.
Well, you know, it's really kind of funny, you know, and to sit there and write an offer, send it in, send the verification of funds, send the pre-approval letter, and so okay, you are one of 9 offers, and you know, I was told on one of them, well, we're only countering the top 4, and you're not one of the top 4. Then hey, great, can you sign that thing saying that the offer was presented, and oh, by the way, you're rejecting it, because guess what, you just rejected my offer. But you know, that's like asking somebody to, you know, cut their firstborn son in half. Here, you know, I mean, you want me to do what?
Perfect.
You know, it's like, yeah, how long is this going to take you? 3 minutes. You know, and
I don't disagree. I mean, it's common courtesy. It's a good business practice.
yeah, you know, but
People are lazy.
In today's world, you know, I mean, and people wonder why we're held up there with the used car salesman. We can't even acknowledge that we presented an offer. You know, I mean, if you got a, you know, shall I say, a hard ass client, well, did they see it? Did they say, well, they told me, well, prove it. You know, and then you go ask the agent, well, I don't really need to do that. And it's like, well, yeah, you really kind of do, you know, but you know, the last time I asked somebody for that, they copped such a bad attitude, and I was nice. I was actually very nice about it. My client would like to know that the seller did see their offer. No, I don't have to do that. Okay.
Well, I have two announcements. This one is based on what you're just saying. The newest California real estate magazine from CAR, Play to Win. Yes, Play to Win, still on my desk. 2021 CAR President Dave Walsh leaves us with these 5 things we need more of today. It's on page 1. Number 1, patience. Everyone's nerves are fried. Take a breath and be patient. And I could totally hear him say this too. Number 2, respect. Remember, there is a learning curve to this profession, especially now. Number 3, civility. Anger never solves problems. That's right. Number 4, professionalism. In this market, I am seeing agents do things that are clearly not acceptable. Stay professional at all times. And number 5, compassion. Caring about all Californians, no matter what their needs are, will go a long way.
Those are some good rules.
They are. And my plug number 2 is today is the last day to vote for the Orange County Realtors Board of Directors election. So if you've not voted, please do so. Only Realtor members are eligible to vote. I'll pop the link in our group once again.
Yes, and I think they're even bribing us Isn't there like an opportunity to get an Amazon card or something?
Oh, I thought you meant the candidates. I really don't want to hear about any bribes.
Not candidates.
Yeah, Orange County Realtors is doing a drawing for voters.
Hey, and you know what I just noticed?
What?
If you look at the little sidebar way down here, vice chairs of the communication advisory. It's me. I didn't know that I was in the back.
Wow.
Weeny microscopic little.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I would have
No
never
wonder I
read
didn't
that.
know it was in there. What do you know? Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
All righty. Well, it's 10 o'clock straight up, and I think we're probably done for the day. And yes, how dare I ask people to be professionals? Well, yeah, it's really kind of a novel concept, isn't it? You know,
Yeah. Well, and if you have your Orange County Realtor magazine, my president's article is on page 8 and 9.
Ta-da. Yeah, you're almost halfway through your term as president. You get to lead the grand reemergence.
Yes. We will be reemerging in the coming period of time.
Definitely.
Yet to be determined by the board of directors.
Yes, yes. And you know what's funny is I went to go pick up a light fixture for listing the other day at Lowe's, and they just now instituted the lockers, like what Orange County Realtors have been using for like a year.
Yeah, we implemented that right away. That was a great find. I don't remember if it was staff or one of the directors that suggested it, but yeah, we went for that, and it's been great. It's been really great to be able to have that. Now members can pick up anything anytime that's convenient for them.
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised that they could put a light fixture in a locker at Lowe's. That was not where I expected to find it. I went up to the service desk. I need my light fixture. They go look in the locker. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh.
Maybe you didn't read the email, and if you walked in with that attitude, I would have been like, girl, go outside.
Sometimes I walk into Lowe's like that. Sometimes I don't.
Okay. Remember, kindness goes a long way. Is that what you said?
Well, they had their fun. Go over there and open it. Okay.
They probably answer that question a million times a day.
I'm sure they do. Yeah. I'm sure they do.
Cool.
All righty, guys. You guys have a wonderful day. Go out there, be safe, be positive, but stay negative, they say, and go out and sell a house. So on that note, take care. We'll see you next week. Oh, next week is the last Monday of the month, but it's also Memorial Day.
TBD.
Yeah. Stay tuned whether we're going to do our Zoom party or take a day off. I've been taking a lot of days off, but you know, we still might.
We did not take days off. We did not broadcast.
Well, yeah, I mean days off of this. We were actually really working those days. Not like we're not really working all the time, but anyhow, you guys know what I mean.
We'll decide. We'll decide and let you all know.
Okay, take care.
Do good work, guys. Thanks.